All right.
And let's go.
And now it's time for Bikes, Mics, and Idiots with your hosts, Ubi and Eric.
Alrighty, guys, here we go again. So we're going to hit a couple things right from the get-go. We had a little break from podcasting, had some personal stuff going on, scheduling conflicts, everything like that.
Medical for me, so
We had a few things going on, so we kind of had to take a little break for a few weeks. But we're back again.
yes, once again, the idiots have returned, and life is good for everybody here.
And so so for our first episode back after this little hiatus that we had, which luckily wasn't too long, we were able to get everything sorted. But we have a special guest coming on today. So you guys will be able to see her. And Eric, if you want to introduce her.
I want to introduce someone who's very dear to my heart. She has been a wonderful supporter of law enforcement, of people who deal with trauma. She helped train me in my peer support class. She's an amazing human being. She helps support the Warrior Shield Foundation, which is part of the Legion of St. Michael now. We work together to benefit first responders, military, and their families. And it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce Dr. Tania Glenn.
Hey, everybody. Good to be on. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you again. I know the last time I saw you was in Orlando, and we did a little quick short, and they're called the Warrior
Wisdom.
Warrior Wisdoms. I always want to say Warrior Minute because it's about a 2-minute deal.
You've said that many
Warrior
times.
Wisdom. I've said it 100 times, and he's always laughed at me like, "No, I don't think that's it. I think it's WW." And I was like, "Yeah, no, you're right." It's like, so I guess.
Yeah.
Warrior Wisdom, and she is awesome. She is one of the best people I've ever met. She does so many good things. So please introduce yourself and give us a background of what it is that you do.
All right. So, hi, everybody. I'm Tania Glenn. I actually live north of Austin, Texas, and I've been in practice for 32 years. So I am a mental health professional, and my specialty is public safety and the military. And I treat post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, burnout, all the things that public safety folks and veterans experience. What kicked it off for me, I was actually 3 months away from finishing my master's degree at the University of Texas. And it was a Sunday afternoon in February of 1993, and I turned on the news, and I watched the ATF attempt the raid at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. And I knew at that point, I knew I wanted to do crisis intervention and trauma work, but that moment was like, that did it for me. And I just decided I need to go to places like Waco and help people like the ATF. So I went to school the next day and told my professors that I was going to do such things. And they told me I was crazy. So here I am 32 years later, just as crazy as the rest of you, and love every day that I go to work. It has been an amazing journey. It's been a roller coaster with lots of blessings along the way. And I've just absolutely enjoyed like every moment of my career.
Well, that's awesome. I know you've, and speaking to you through the training we've done, I know you've worked with not just law enforcement, first responders. You deal with airline employees and a whole spectrum of people who've gone through any type of traumatic situation. And once again, we thank you so much for that. It is totally amazing to know you. And I was so happy when I was looking at the Orlando thing and was like, oh my gosh, Tania's going to be there. And then I immediately was like, hey, I'm going to be there. Are you actually going? It was so super awesome.
That was a wonderful weekend. So much good came out of that weekend. That was fantastic.
Well, and the best part is we got to be there and support. It was Sub-Zero Foundation this year. So great foundation helping out our veterans. But not only did we get to support them, we had a good time doing it. So
Absolutely.
I like to see it when we help other people, we reap the benefit. So we went out there, we supported them, and we got just as much support as we gave, if not more. And that's how I see it.
That's the beauty of this community is just the love and the fellowship is so amazing. When you help others, how much you receive in return. And I think that's been what has motivated me through my whole career. The most commonly asked question is like, how do you treat and so much PTSD, so much trauma, and hear so many horrible stories and keep going? And my main answer is, well, it's two things. Number one, I work out every day. But number two, it's every time I see somebody heal and they spread their wings and fly again and return to the line and just carry on with their lives, it motivates me for the 100 next ones, right? So the give back is always amazing.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's awesome. I was going to hit on something that you had said earlier about like the crazy thing. I think a lot of that camaraderie that you're talking about comes from that quote unquote crazy, because in these lines of work, you do have to have a little bit of that crazy, because that's where we build a dark sense of humor, all that kind of thing. It's part of those lines of work. So I think that brings everyone together a little bit.
Yeah. And I know, of course, you know, you've talked to me about this, but I know you've talked about EMDR with us. Would you like to explain a little bit about EMDR and how it can be beneficial for people suffering from PTSD? Because I want any of our soldiers, our law enforcement guys, our airplane guys, anybody who's gone through that serious stress and has those what I call them precursors to PTSD, because I'm not educated on this, but anybody who's suffering from that, so that we can get them help.
EMDR is my favorite thing to talk about.
Perfect.
So let me start with trauma first, and then I'll explain why EMDR works. So what happens to individuals who go through a traumatic event is, as you all know, at the time of the event, you're too busy, your training kicks in, your muscle memory kicks in. And then what happens generally, it's usually like on that drive home, is the brain starts to replay what you saw, heard, tasted, touched, and smelled. And the reason that happens is because during the trauma, you're so busy kicking butt, taking names, surviving, that your brain doesn't have time to process what you saw, heard, tasted, touched, and smelled at the time. And so it gets captured in your frontal lobe. And that's why for the first few days after trauma, the replay is pretty frequent. Over time, then, what we want the brain to do is to be able to take what you saw, heard, tasted, touched, and smelled, process that information, and download it into your long-term memory. And the event, that whatever the thing was that happened to you, becomes a bad memory versus a trauma that stays trapped here in your frontal lobe. What happens with trauma that becomes problematic is that it doesn't move. It's like I liken it to like a bad attachment to an email, when your brain computer won't download that attachment. And so what happens is it stays there and it starts to trigger you over time. And the more it triggers you, and the more like I call them flashbangs because they're really unpleasant, the more flashbangs your brain hands you and the body responds in kind with a fight or flight response, it produces the stress hormone cortisol, which then ends up, because it gets so high in copious amounts in your body, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and then it starts to damage your brain and cause your limbic system, which is your fight or flight mechanism, to become maligned. So that's trauma. What EMDR does is it actually replicates rapid eye movement that you do in your sleep cycle, which is when you process trauma from the last 48 hours, but you're awake and alert and in control.
So real quick, let me just stop you for 1 second. What does EMDR stand for?
I was just about to do that.
Sorry, because
I was just about to do that.
I always say it wrong too. It's just kind of like I almost said warrior wisdom. I got it that time. So eventually I'll get it.
Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So what it does, right, is it actually, through replicating the rapid eye movements that you do when you're awake and alert and in control, is it basically gets the frontal lobe of your brain to open the synapses and process and download and move those images, smells, sounds into your long-term memory. So what we do is we basically get the brain, it's like we hand the brain a key to unlock the lock. And what this technique does, is it takes the information from your frontal lobe where it's not supposed to be stored, and it downloads it to your long-term memory. Everybody has bad memories, but bad memories don't trigger us. You could all pull up a bad memory, think about it, push it back, and it's tucked away where it needs to be. With EMDR, what we do is we take the problematic, stimuli that's trapped in your frontal lobe, and we push it to your long-term memory. And it is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned to me before that you've taken, people who have had issues hearing loud noises, and that would turn them into, what we would consider the shell-shocked soldier, and bring them back out to where they have not necessarily 100% functioning right away, but where they're very able to at least deal with that in a better situation. So, I mean, that's amazing. Like giving that back, that, and I'm going to say quote unquote normal, because none of us are normal, but giving us that quote unquote normal life again is a renewed lease on life for these guys. And it's what we all need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'll tell you, when I first heard about it, so it was developed in the early 90s. And when I first heard about it, I was like, no way. There's no way. Like this, there's no way. And I had a supervisor where I was working at the time in the emergency room here in Austin. And she's like, you know, if you're going to treat trauma, you really need to go through this training. So I paid for the training. I flew up to Baltimore to take my class. My first day of training was the day of the Oklahoma City bombing. And 2 weeks later, I'm sitting across from an Oklahoma City firefighter who found what was left of the daycare. And you guys, he was not okay. Like, he was not okay. And he said, if you could just take these images from my head, I will be forever grateful. And here's 26-year-old Tania. And I'm like, well, there's this brand new technique, and we're not exactly sure why it works because we haven't had enough time to study it, but I know it works. And someone did it on me during training, and I can do it on you. And he's like, I'll do anything. And so I'm pulling up my chair to do my first EMDR session, like having this internal dialogue, like, really, of all people, this guy? And I watched this transformation. He had to, at the end of EMDR, and this is the end result, is he had to search for the images, like a bad memory, versus it being just constantly in his face. And so I followed him through his whole career because he was my very first patient to do it on, and he retired as a battalion chief with 0 problems.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is
This
awesome.
is, I mean, this is the shiz. I mean, I just love it.
Well, and that's the thing too, is because that takes a guy who dedicates his life for helping and assisting others, and those images in long term would have really hurt him in his personal life, in his social life,
Right.
And giving that back. Like I tell everybody when I talk to them about you that you are what I call a life returner. Because that's you're giving them their real life back, and that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. I love this. I love it so much. I love doing this. I love watching the outcome. Yep. When I first started doing it, I mentally had to catch up to my patients because they would discharge so fast after EMDR.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah, like, and I was so used to like normal talk therapy and other trauma treatments. But, you know, when I got trained in this, and I was like, wow, I'm not ready for you to go yet. Cause
I'm not ready. You weren't prepared.
I'm still 16 things behind you trying to catch up. You know, I'm trying to race back to the front to get there with you, and I'm not there yet.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Exactly.
Oh, that's insane. Yeah. That's insane, but it's so awesome. So I know that's something that you've specialized in. And I've talked to a few people that know you very well and have said it changed my life. And I saw some of those at that benefit, and they're like, oh, you know, how do you know Tania? And I explained how, oh, you know, we met each other doing this and that. And it's like, oh, she's a lifesaver.
Yeah. Thank you.
So that's amazing.
It is amazing. It is. And I'll tell you what, we use EMDR to basically address PTSD when it's already there. But now we have it down where we use it to mitigate PTSD.
Oh, awesome.
So we have this 8-week window. And so we capture the trauma in those first 8 weeks, and we do the EMDR, and we just basically circumvent the whole PTSD possibility, which is amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So kind of a question. Awesome. Yeah. So kind of a question on the EMDR thing. Does it have other uses besides just assisting with like PTSD or or whatever you would like to call it?
Yes. Yeah, so I've used it for anxiety. I've used it just for people's anger. And we'll start with like the feeling of the anger that people will have, they're saying, you know, my anger's out of control, my anxiety's out of control. We start with the feeling, and the brain always takes us to basically the root cause. Mm-hmm. We've had firefighters who suddenly, for whatever reason, start to panic when they put the respirator on. So we've done it for that, and then the brain always shows like what's causing this. It always makes sense. You know, I've used it for like performance issues, like with like air medical, like rescue, the crew chief training, especially here in Travis County, we have Starflight. They're very, very high performers. And I've done EMDR when they are not doing well in crew chief training to get them to start to redirect our thought processes about their stress level and when they're doing crew chief duties. So we've done all kinds of things with it. It's pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I reading into what I've read into and seen, you are one of the leaders of it at this point. Like honestly, everywhere you look up EMDR, you're in there on the Google searches. Like,
thank you.
So it's you. So
Yeah.
I mean that's amazing. So we'll make sure at the end we give you we'll give you some time to plug all your accounts to make sure everything's good there to go. Nice. But
thank you.
So we'll go on to this next question here. So what got you interested in your career? What was like?
So I went to college, and so my brother's a physician. He's a surgeon, and my parents were like, "You should be a lawyer. That way, we have a doctor and a lawyer." And I was like, "Okay." And like halfway through college, it was the summer between my sophomore and junior year. I needed money. I was poor, and I took a job at Austin Sunshine Camp, which is a camp for underprivileged kids. And it was the first year that they had the teenager camp, because they've always had little kids, but they had a teenagers camp out on the lake with a ropes course. And so these were very tough kids who came out and would spend a week with us and kind of watching that transformation. And at the end of the summer, we were kind of doing the camp cleanup, and I was talking to the other counselors and the nurse, and I was like, I wish I could do this for a living. And the nurse is like, come over here. And she's like, change your major. Like, she's like, you're right at that point where it's time. So, so I went home and informed my parents that I was going to change courses.
The little bit of recruitment right there by that nurse on there. So,
yeah.
But that's good. That's good. So, like, that's just the amazing things that like all different people you meet in your life can cause an adjustment one way or another to go like a totally different direction. Like, it's really weird. I wanted to originally be a teacher. I would have been a horrible teacher.
Oh, yes.
So like,
yes,
horrible.
Absolutely.
So then I decided to get into law enforcement about halfway through my college time. But then the funny thing is I got to go and instruct and ended up being a phenomenal instructor because I could yell and swear at people.
Yeah, but it's different than being an actual teacher.
So yeah. Oh, I couldn't be a teacher with children that were other like. At least in my realm, I'm able to yell and scream at people, and it's okay because that's what you do as an instructor in our agency. So
makes it completely different.
It worked totally different, same but different. So
underneath.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things as a peer support person I've dealt with is burnout. So what advice do you have for counselors or peer support members that are suffering from that burnout, and our LE as well, because LE guys that aren't peer support and counselors get that same burnout?
Absolutely. I always say that it's coming in every helping profession, whether it's public safety or healthcare or the military. Like, it's coming. And any profession that requires the giving of yourself to others, this is going to happen. So what we do at the practice is we really work on people's resilience, which is your life outside the job. So we start like with tangible, like hydration, nutrition, rest, and exercise. And so like I assign people like to add 8 ounces of water to their day, 100 steps on the Fitbit, and 30 minutes of sleep at night. And then the next week we go to 16 ounces of water a day, an hour of sleep, and 200 steps on the Fitbit. We start there. And then we get into your life outside the job, your family, your faith, your friends, and your hobbies. And what we do is we regain the balance, right? Because I explain to people, like, if your job is like if we all have an internal fuel tank, if your job is like a siphon on that fuel tank, your off-duty time you have to spend restoring it, right? And also some of that resilience is cleaning up some of the mess. Sometimes it's, if you're in a really bad relationship, it's like, what you're going to do to fix that relationship or get out of it. It's all the cleanup we have to do. It's cleaning up the finances. It's cleaning up. But basically, the more resilient you are, the more you refuel that internal fuel tank off duty, the less you're going to struggle with that burnout. But it's coming for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, for us, like obviously with the motorcycle club, that's a big thing for us, is for us to get together with our friends, go on a ride, grab some lunch. For us, occasionally it's a beer. I mean, that's, but it
comes with the territory.
I always look at that it, as long as it's a beer and not a case of beer, then, sitting there and having some fellowship is okay, as long as it's under control. And we're really
Absolutely.
good. We're really good in our club making sure that doesn't happen. Like, hey,
Yeah. We try to.
yeah, we regulate very, very closely
good.
when we're out as a group. And if somebody's having a hard time, that's not like that doesn't become part of it at all. We make sure that that's not it. We're going on a ride together. We're grabbing lunch, and you can have one at lunch, and that's it. So that's one of the things that we try to make sure, because alcohol is a depressant,
Right.
you know. So that is one of those things. But it's unfortunately it's something that law enforcement, military, first responders all rely on, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think there's just that that environment in that situation with those kind of people.
Yeah, that's how all of us, like, we always knew choir practice. We always knew, hey, yeah, we'll get together and have a beer after work and talk about that terrible day that you had and the people that you saw in that car wreck.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's part of the culture.
Right.
But I think now that we're as aware of it as we are, and especially like our guys for sure are aware of it, because there's multiple peer support members in our club that are very smart about it. And we're like, hey guys, okay, yeah, we're going to do that, but it's one and we're out. And then we're
Right.
going to go ride, and then we're going to go stop somewhere and we're going to talk.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
we've tried to preserve the quote unquote tradition, but make sure that it's safe. I don't know if that's the easiest way to say it. I know that's kind of I'm terrible with my words.
But I think also with kind of the environment we're in, a lot of alpha males, a lot of people that are, I'd say, hard-headed. You kind of get, no, not at all. You kind of get that. It kind of loosens things up for everybody. You have a drink, and guys are able to kind of release some of that.
Yeah,
express
Absolutely.
some of that.
Yeah, they're sipping their whiskey
Absolutely.
and going, man, that really bothered me what I saw today. And like, hey, yeah, I understand, man.
Absolutely.
We've been there. So it's not necessarily the best tool, but we utilize it. The key is that we just got to be smart about how we utilize it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
so that kind of brings me into this next thing here. So what do you do to decompress from critical incidents? Like, what's your
So-
go-to?
Yeah, I work out every morning. That's when I travel, half my suitcase is workout clothes. So I never skip. I never skip unless I'm like deathly ill. So I do that. I talk to my family and my team. I have a really good sort of outlet. I'm surrounded by amazing people who love me a lot. And so there's a lot of sort of, venting and discussing and stuff like that. And then the other thing really is like I mentioned earlier, just watching my patients do so well and get their lives back and get back out on the line. That to me is such a huge motivator. I've had a couple of times where I felt like I've been sort of kicked in the gut by my career. I think one of the worst ones was my first time at the Brooke Army Medical Center with the Marine Corps. I worked for a couple of months on the burn unit down there on a special project they had me on. And just seeing everybody in the burn unit was so, like, I know you read about it and I know you hear about it, you watch news stories about it, but walking onto that burn unit was by far one of the most difficult days I've had. And I had to kind of take a knee, and a colonel helped me. I was out in the parking lot kind of pacing, and I was telling him that I didn't think I could do it. And he looked at me and he's like, hey, so those people in there, they really need your skills, Tania. So I'm just going to ask you to take a big deep breath and tell me whatever it is you need, but I need you to get back in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, Roger that, let me go.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be very rewarding, but it was, there's been a couple moments where I've had to take a knee and drink some water and get back up and go.
Well, and that moves on to our next one too, which is explain that importance of the healthy choices for people dealing with trauma. So like in those situations, you've hit that full mark and you need to do something to deal with it. And it's important to have those healthy choices. What are some of those really good healthy choices that you suggest for our warriors out there that are listening to this and might need that first step to just get moving?
Well, the key to me, exercise, like that's nature's antidepressant. And I always tell people, look, if you get injured, ask the doctor what you can do. Maybe you can't run, but maybe you can get in a pool and swim some laps, right? But never, ever, ever stop moving. To me, that is by far one of the best things you can do. It's, drinking responsibly, drinking socially, not drinking out of control. It's basically having that fellowship of people you can talk to whether it's your colleagues, your friends, your family members. I do like to, especially when I teach cadets and rookies, I like to challenge them to keep one friend that they have when they start their career, or one or two friends that they have when they start their career that doesn't do like law enforcement, fire, EMS, and to keep those friends as much as you can through your career. Your schedule's weird, your stories are weird, but I ask them, like, when you keep the normal friend, when you go out, don't tell them all about the cool calls and the awful calls. Like, just talk about other things, because it's important to remember. And I think part of it that we often forget is that there's a life outside of the ugly, and there are thousands of people around who love you for what you do, but you just never deal with them because they don't use heroin and beat the crap out of each other. So it's, so to me, it's
Probably
like,
shouldn't have laughed at that, but that was, I found that amusing, but you're right. You're right.
Yep.
That actually,
I always tell people, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that actually reminds me, I had a time with my best friend that lives up in Phoenix. Don't see him too often. And that was like perfect encapsulation of that situation. Didn't talk anything about work really, except for maybe just work's been kind of sucking lately, whatever. But we talked about normal people things instead of what like we would talk about.
Was that yesterday?
That was yesterday.
Oh, so when you had to replace the battery on your Polaris. Okay, you're right. Hey, so he calls me last night. He's like, my bike won't start. And I said, okay, well, did you turn it on? Of course, that's what I go for first is, did you turn it on? And he's like, yes, I turned it on. I'm not dumb. I'm like, eh. And then it ended up being a bad battery. So he's calling me and I'm like, right now, I really don't want to leave the house. So I'm going to give him a lot of advice from the phone.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a weird situation. It wasn't just that it didn't turn on like a normal low battery would have. So that's why I called him. I was just like, maybe he has some idea, just bouncing ideas off each other. So
did I have the right idea?
Yeah.
Luckily, eventually you did.
Yes, I did.
That's what friends are for.
Exactly. And I was totally like, well, if he calls and the battery doesn't work, I'll drive up there and we'll just throw his bike in the back of the truck and I'll drive him home. But I really don't want to do that at 9 o'clock at night.
You were the closest one. So.
I know I was. You're not wrong. So, you want to hit the next one?
Oh yeah.
We're on the next one. Yeah.
Oh, unless you had more to say.
Yeah, you have
on
more
that
to add because we kind of cut you off.
We kind of cut you off.
We're good. No, we're good. Yeah, you got it.
So, what's the funniest story from a critical incident scene?
So I was thinking about this when you sent me the list of questions. There's just a lot of funny things have happened. I'd say that, and so this wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now. It's one of those stories.
Definitely.
So there I was in Hurricane Katrina for 3 weeks. And I stayed in Hammond, Louisiana, and one agency flew me in an ACE every day down to the French Quarter so I could do the work. And it was me and 700 agents in the French Quarter. Do the math, right? So I'm working, and then they fly me to Hammond. I'm staying in somebody's house because there's no hotels. So it's really stressful. And one day I think I have this rash on my back, and I'm like, golly, it's kind of like it hurts, and it's kind of like nasty. I don't know what this rash is. I thought it was kind of like the sweat and the funk, and so I named it Katrina because
Yeah, there you go.
Of course.
So they insert me into the French Quarter one day, and I hop on over to the med shed. And I go into the tent, and there's this physician's assistant. And I was like, hey, I was wondering if you have something for this rash. It's just kind of really obnoxious. And I pulled my shirt up to show him, and it's, across my back, on one side of my back. I should have known that. That's a clue. And he looked at me, and he's like, are you stressed? And I was like, no, not at all. And he goes, that's the worst case of shingles I've ever seen. And at that point, I burst into tears.
I've heard that's terrible.
Yes. I laugh now. It wasn't funny at the time, but I laugh now just looking back. I was like, and I have often said that Katrina is the last time I go in without a peer support team because it was just me. Ridiculous. And so, but I look back now and laugh. There's just been so much funny stuff along the way. And that by far is now one of my favorite stories. And hey, dummy, practice the self-care because it's kind of important.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. If you can't function, you can't help anybody.
Right.
So that makes it a little more difficult. But I've had a few critical incidents where you're like, you either say or do something and you're like, oh, and then everybody laughs and you're like, well, I guess it was needed because everybody was thinking the same thing if they all laughed.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
But I think that's what something you hit on there, and you were saying the self-care.
Yeah.
That's something we do, and I'm sure most law enforcement, most first responders, even I'm assuming therapists as well, they tend to kind of put that on the back burner a little bit every once in a while, where it's because you want to give as much as you can because that's in your nature.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a very important thing for people to remember.
Well, and that's where I think, like you said, going in with that peer support team, you would hopefully have somebody to come over to you and be like, hey, Tanya, I think you need a break.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And you'll be like, no, I'm good. I'm telling you, you need a break. That's where the team helps because they can have each other's backs and say, hey, this person looks like they're burning out. Like, hey, go take a breath, go grab a hot meal real quick and some fluids. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's where the team helps. And we always operate, you know, we talk about we all operate in a team and we're one team, one fight. And then sometimes we forget about that. And I think that's where, you know, especially like, I know you train me as peer support. You've helped train me multiple times in different topics with that. And that was one of the things that always resonated is take care of your team. Look out for your team because you guys have to do this together. And I think that's so important that it gets overlooked in general public as well. Like take care of each other. And that goes into our next question, which is what can we all do to help those around us? Even if you're not a peer support member, counselor, et cetera, what do you think we can do really for all of those around us?
So I think the best thing maybe for all of your listeners to understand is that we have so many solutions for trauma and stress and all the demons. Like we have great techniques like EMDR. And so I think that when someone is struggling, people just don't know what to say. And really, and I tell folks all the time, there's no magic words to take a buddy's pain away. But what you can do is you can steer them to information. Like you can get on Google and research trauma treatment, and you can research EMDR, and you can talk about, well, hey, look at this, and here's this really interesting thing happening, and having those conversations versus just not knowing what to say or just saying, well, dude, that sucks, and walking away. I think most people just, especially people who aren't trained in this, they feel helpless and they don't know what to do. But there's so much good information out there, so just like dive into the research with somebody, right? And I think that's one of the best things you can do. Another thing I've seen people do is I've seen people who basically will take someone to their first therapy appointment and wait in the waiting room while they're in there for the very first time, because everybody's terrified the first time. And so if you want to be a battle buddy and someone's going to go get help, just offer to drive them and sit in the waiting room and wait for them. To me, that's so meaningful and so valuable.
Well, and we've done that with guys. We had a guy who we took to his cancer treatments. He was just like, he was so stressed out about getting his treatment. He's like, he was so worried about it. So our club ended up paying for a bunch of his cancer treatments. And we had one of our members drove him to every treatment. Yeah.
I love that.
So, I mean, those are the things like, I think we're a weird community in that aspect. Like, I will bag on him so hard all day long. Like, I will give him the biggest rash of, you can beat me for it, but I'm going to give you the biggest rash for it all the time. Beep. There goes another one. But at the same time, if somebody else has an issue, I'm going to be there. Or if I see that he's got a problem, I'm going to be there and I'm going to take care of it. Now, I might just be on the phone going, I'm not driving out there. It's a bad battery. Just change your battery. But we're always going to be there and answer those phones for each other. And I think that's something the general public doesn't really have a lot compared to our
community.
Yeah.
So I can even throw this one out there. After I broke my leg last year, it was like a week after my surgery. We hadn't been to lunch for a few weeks because of it. And what'd you do? You came and picked me up in the Jeep, took the top off.
Took the top off so it could feel like he was riding a motorcycle. So top off, windows down, and crutches in the back.
Fantastic. Yes, and that is what we do. That is what we do.
But sometimes, so on this whole topic, sometimes I think, like you were saying, driving someone to their first meeting or their first therapy session, whatever it may be, and sometimes people ask for it, but sometimes people just need it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and they don't ask for it. They're not willing to ask for it.
and I don't even think it's not willing a lot of times. I think it's they have so many things on this sheet of paper. I have to do this. I don't even know where to start. And you can say, I'll get you there, buddy. And, that's checked off the list. I don't have to deal with it now.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if it's something as simple as that, and then, hey, let's grab some lunch after the appointment.
Yep.
And now you've taken two things. You've taken getting there, having somebody to support him, and getting him his nourishment and their fluids, all that stuff. Like, you're giving them everything that they need basically to function at that point. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like, I hear people complain all the time. Like, we just had the Chicago officer that got shot and killed, and they just had his funeral. And I hear people, oh, well, why are all those police officers out there supporting that? Like, oh, we're paying them to be at a funeral? Yes, we are, because you don't understand what these guys go through. And this is needed not only for the officer's family, it's needed for the community.
Right.
And when the community supports their law enforcement officers and their first responders, the community gets better.
Absolutely.
And that's we work as one team. And that's something I think that we lose a lot of times in today's society. That it's an unfortunate thing, but
yeah.
So one thing I want to say about that is, we give a lot of voice to the people who are like, well, why are all these officers getting paid overtime to attend a funeral?
Yeah.
But what we really need to focus on are the thousands of people who line the streets, as the procession came by, waving flags and donating money. Those are the people who need the louder voice. It's not the naysayers and the poo-pooers. It's the people who love you, but the naysayers are so loud, right? And that's why I tell people all the time, like, every time you're driving code whatever into whatever situation you're going into, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of happy, healthy people who need you and love you.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think always the negative voice. It's like, I might have a great experience at a restaurant, and I don't go and post, oh my God, this was the best experience I've ever had. It's only the negative people who post. So there's some of that too. And I think unfortunately our media portrays that negative aspect way more than anything else.
Well, so I think that's a good place to stop real quick. We'll do a quick
5-minute break.
We'll do a little sponsor spot here.
Yeah.
We want to thank one of our founding sponsors who helped make all of this possible. The Legion of St. Michael Law Enforcement Motorcycle Club International is a 501c3 charitable organization that focuses on first responders and military families in need.
The Legion of St. Michael was founded in 2014 in Chicago, Illinois, in memory of fallen officers. If you are interested in helping to support the Legion of St. Michael in their endeavors to assist first responders and military families, please reach out to a local chapter or contact the Idiots for a link for donations.
All right, guys, we're back from our little sponsor spot. Back here again with Tania Glenn.
Yep.
I'll go into this next question
Yeah, you
here.
gonna hit that next one?
So before I go into the next question, actually, I forgot to hit this at the beginning. So this is going to be a very serious episode for us.
Yes.
But this is a big topic for us. This is something that we really believe in. So we really wanted to do this. And we'll be back with our regularly scheduled programming after
scheduled
that.
stupidity on the next one. We can make fun of his bike a little bit more, and then mine too.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that the next episode. But once again, we want to thank you, Tania Glenn, for coming on, being here with us. And so we're going to continue on with where we're at right now.
All right.
So what do you think of support animals and service dogs? Is there a difference in your mind?
Yeah, so the actual certified service dogs are so valuable to, I think, to everybody who interfaces with them. There are, of course, working with an airline. I have one of my clients is a major airline, and there's a lot of people who just sort of, do the online thing and get Fluffy certified as their support animal, and they have big problems with them on the planes, right? They're like pooping everywhere and barking and all that stuff. But I do think that, and I know, one of my therapists has a dog at the practice, Chinook, and people love Chinook, and they look for Chinook when they come. And she was at our Dallas office last Friday, and everybody was like, "Well, where's Chinook?" So there is a lot of value, I think, in having a well-trained dog who is certified by an accredited organization, because it really does alleviate a lot for people. And it's a great conversation starter. And obviously when people are really, like, especially when they come to therapy the first time and they're super nervous, having a dog there that they can pet, and just kind of get mesmerized with, it just brings everything down. Their stress, their pressure, everything comes down.
Yeah. Well, and I got to meet Chinook in Orlando, and we talked a little bit off camera about the fact I have a German Short-haired Pointer too that unfortunately we just lost in the family. Very sad. But Chinook, the same thing. I've never seen a person petting a dog angry. Like it opens, opens people up. Our agency actually has a few service animals as well.
Peer support dogs
Peer support dogs, and they are like, they come in the room and everybody you can see the mood shift in a room. Like they are so valuable, and it's amazing that you have one at your practice, and that's awesome. And your handler is amazing as well. She is so great. So it adds so many good things.
See, so I think this question is more kind of leaning towards the support animal. Yeah. Because a lot of people have
I've
really
got my
taken
support bull constrictor on the plane.
Right. A lot of people have really leaned into that whole, this is my support chinchilla. I mean,
so I guess my question is, what is the difference between the accredited programs and obviously the online program? They just kind of sign it out, but the accredited programs, what are some of the things that you are aware of that they have to go through?
Well, so there's all like the basic training, and then the accredited programs train the animal for the needs of the owner or for the needs of the organization, right? So there's not just like the sort of the good puppies type of training, sit, stay, and all that stuff. They are trained to interface with like crowds of people, to go through airports, get on planes, escalators, all the things that normally dogs don't experience. And they're trained at such a high level. And then, of course, they match the needs of the owner. So if the owner has anxiety and the dog picks up on the owner's anxiety, they're interacting with their owner. And that really, truly is very different than this is my pet that I'm going to bring through TSA and somehow hope that, the dog behaves on the flight. And, the dogs sometimes don't behave on the flights. Yeah. And so I think that, and I know traveling with Monique, Chinook's owner, it's and we talked about this just last week, every flight we board, it's like you're proving yourself to the flight attendants. It's kind of like when I teach, the first time I teach a classroom full of police officers, and they're like, oh, whatever, here comes this lady, and she's going to talk about stress, and and then I kind of nail it right between the eyes. Yeah. And so every flight she boards, she has to prove her. And by the end, the flight attendants are like, oh my gosh, this is such a great dog. Because they've dealt with all these people who got that little online certificate and didn't do really any training, and the dog was absolute chaos, right? So to me, it's just important that we all like really look out for that and set those limits and sort of stop. I know the airlines have really cracked down. I know Monique has to check in with his paperwork and all of his certificates and all that now on some airlines. And so I think it just, I understand people want to travel with their pet, but when you do that, you really kind of ruin it for the actual service dogs.
Yeah, well, and you could tell, like, Chinook is just the way he acts. You can tell it's not just this, just this dog that's there. Like, you can obviously tell, like, immediately when we met him, I was like, oh, this is so great. And I just started, like, I just grinned ear to ear and was like, oh, you look at the GSP, I'm going to pet you. I can't help it. I turn into a blubbery idiot around dogs. Like, I can't help it. I just do it.
He cuddles with a dog every night.
Well, then you've got you got a Shih Tzu that chews your finger off as soon as you go try to touch the damn thing. And that's not a service animal. It's fine. And I'm just, it's fine. It just got one finger. It's okay. But, but no, I totally see the difference. And I think it's so cool because I think it's an untapped for law enforcement agencies. People see our dogs most of the time and they are the most, I don't want to say violent, but like, they're trained for a mission, and it's protect the handler and get the job done. Yeah. And, somebody walks up to me and says, oh, here's my service Malinois. I'm going to be like, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. I don't want to leave with half of my arm because, like, Malinois can be trained great, but they are Malinois. They're bred a certain way. And I think a GSP, German Short-haired Pointer, is such a great dog. I mean, they are so awesome.
Yeah.
They really are. They really are.
They are amazing. Yeah.
Shotzi was.
Oh yeah, my Shotzi was right there too. Dog. She was amazing as well. I mean,
Yeah.
She would never probably have passed any of the certifications because she just wanted pets from everybody. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
just come say hello. But
She
No,
got
that's
excited.
definitely-
She got excited when I came by that day.
oh yeah, she was so happy. She was so happy.
she was
that
so
was, That
happy.
was the day
She's-
she wasn't doing well, and
Yeah.
that was it for her, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tough.
So I'm going to move on to the next question here. What is the biggest issue you see with first responders? And there's going to be a kind of a two-part to that. Like, once you give me the answer to that, I'll hit the two underneath it there.
The biggest issue with first responders?
Yeah, in general, like what do you think is like the number one thing that's, and I know that's
The main like ailment for
yeah.
first responders, I guess.
Well, so to me, it's kind of the lifestyle, right? So it's so many of our patients, they've never dealt with resilience. They've never taken care of themselves. And, a couple years in, 3 or 5 years in, if they've quit working out, they're sleeping horribly, they are divorced, they have, child custody issues going on, they are, sleeping with colleagues. It's all the dumpster fire.
She's ticking all the boxes right now. Like,
Yeah, she's
everything.
had quite a few, the divorce
And then
one's
they're
not
like-
there for me, so I'm good on that one so far.
Yeah. But then they're like, fix me, and I'm just, it's like, it really is, to me, it's like people just slide into unhealthy, and it's, whether it's trauma or shift work or just the public or the strain of the job, or seeing bad things. Like, to me, that's why I like grabbing people when they're young. Because if we grab them when they're young, we can teach them how to maintain their resilience and keep friends outside of work and, how to do all the things. But it's that dumpster fire. Like, our typical patient is not someone, once in a while we get someone who wants to work with, do their resilience, and because they're new at this and they want to really, work that way. But we typically get divorced 3 times, 6 kids, child support at the wazoo, bankrupts, all the things, right? All the things. And none of that is resilience, like none of that.
Yeah.
So
Now-
to me, that's the biggest issue.
So I'm going to go off that a little bit. Do you think it would be beneficial for agencies to have a resiliency expert at the academies and start from day one and say, these are the things you need to think and work with?
Absolutely.
So that's something that I might suggest, because I know enough people at our academy still that I might be able to suggest through and say, even if it's just a short introduction to resiliency, I think something like that would be absolutely beneficial to our agencies.
Right.
So going off on a little bit of a tangent here with it. So what do you consider resiliency? So, because I think that's going to be
That'll be a
it's
question
the
guys will
comprehension
ask,
thing
yeah.
there. So
Right.
What do you,
So like we talked about earlier, your hydration, nutrition, rest, and exercise, family, faith, friends, hobbies, your financial stability, you're keeping your hobbies going, keeping your life outside the job, keeping your family intact, or dealing with whatever family issues are coming up. Like, it's understanding that this career does have an impact, and the ability to mitigate as much as you can versus just kind of like slumping on the couch, watching Netflix, drinking a lot, and going through all the things, right? It's so tempting to do all those things. And what we have to do is we have to keep people as focused as possible on their physical and mental health. And to me, that's resiliency.
okay. So
I see you laughing.
Yeah, he was looking at me because I was pointing at myself. And I've actually, because of some of the medical things I'm going through now, I've actually turned some things around, changed a bunch of stuff. And I waited. And I know I've always told people the same thing, that even though I am peer support, I've gone through all this, you still fall into those traps.
absolutely.
And I think it's because I didn't hold myself responsible for my own situations. I guess that's
Sometimes it's easier to talk the talk than walk the walk.
well,
That's
exactly.
essentially what it
Yeah,
comes
well,
down to.
exactly. Yeah, because I mean, and on I'm a midnights guy, so I get home in the morning, and the last thing I want to do is go work out when I've been up all night and slept like crap during the day, because you just do. It's so difficult to sleep during the day on midnights. But now I'm turning some things around, and it's not been necessarily fun or easy, but it's the smartest way for me to be around for my family. And that's the most important thing, is for me to be around to watch my son go through hopefully the Naval Academy if everything goes well, to watch, to walk my daughter down the aisle someday. So those are the things that are important to me, and those are down the road.
Right.
And if I don't take care of myself now, there is going to be no down the road for me.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I've had to adjust fire, and it has not been easy nor fun, but it has been a necessity. And now that I'm focused on it, I'm doing pretty darn good with it. So
Good.
So, and I
It's
did
still
one of
hard.
the smartest things you ever told me was to go get a blood test and get testosterone and all that checked. Mine was like off the chart, not good. So,
Wow. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's been helping a lot. Like that was one of the things that really like, oh wow, yeah, this is good. This is good. Like I was really happy. Cholesterol, all that kind of stuff was good. My blood sugar was a little bit high, which not surprising, considering I drink like half a pound of sugar with my coffee. So I've cut that out and gone to black coffee. And but my testosterone was astronomically low.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that's really helped kind of start to level me out. And I'm getting there. It's only been about 4 weeks now of being on testosterone, and that has helped significantly. So
Good.
And I think that's a significant thing. A lot of guys in law enforcement, military, first responders, all that kind of stuff, they end up
low
on
testosterone.
low testosterone.
Right.
But
Right.
trying to hit on that resiliency thing, and I love the way you explained it. A lot of people, and I think this is something we need to hit. A lot of people think resiliency is just, well, I went through this thing, I'm still going, and that's resiliency. That's what it is.
That's getting through it. Resiliency
Yeah.
is bouncing back to a normal state.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that's why I said I think that's something we need to kind of clarify for people,
Yeah.
because that's
Yes.
what most people think it is. It's just I'm still going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a huge misnomer that people have. Like you said, is that people think that being resilient is just getting through it. No,
Right.
getting through it is living.
Yeah.
Being
Right,
resilient
right.
is being able to flourish after
Right.
something like that.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that's where, we all fall into that trap. But back to it. So off those issues, do you see the biggest issues with first responders? Do you see certain issues that are more prevalent with like EMTs having issues with this, police officers having issue with that, corrections officers having issue with that? In your experience, have you seen that they all have, we're all going to have issues.
Yeah.
But have you seen like EMTs have this type of issue, police officers typically have this type of issue, or is it that?
Is there that kind of separation
is-
between those?
Yeah. I think that what I see with EMTs and paramedics, it's the death after death after death, and feeling like they've somehow become Dr. Death. And I really discourage partners from like nicknaming their partner Dr. Death, because it does resonate. When their goal is to save a life, the lack of success, and once somebody has CPR, their survival we're down to like 7% chance that they're gonna live. So I think a lot of EMTs sort of get demoralized by all the constant death around them. For police officers, it's definitely thanks to the media, it's the public, right?
Yeah.
And this all started with Ferguson, and maybe even a little bit before that. But it is the disconnect between police officers and the public's misunderstanding of what police officers do. And then, of course, police officers being so beaten down by society for so long. I always talk to them about their awesome resting bitch face, which, of course, if somebody wants to say hello to the police officer, they're not going to, because, RBF. So there's that real strong disconnect, I think.
Yeah.
For corrections officers, there's the feeling of just lack of recognition, lack of appreciation, overall. I think that, they are part of the law enforcement community, but they're so often just forgotten, kind of like our dispatchers are.
Oh yeah, and honestly, I want to say the 911 dispatchers, they hear every terrible call, whether it goes to an EMT, police officer, fire department.
Yeah.
They have to hear every terrible call.
Right.
I only have to hear the ones that you send me to.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So there's that, and I think that they're so underappreciated in our agencies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They really are. Could you just imagine, it's already bad enough with the stuff we deal with. They're hearing every single one.
Oh yeah, and a lot of times they're on the phone when spouse
things happen.
kills spouse, when a
Right.
child screaming for help, and they're there, they hear it but there's nothing they can do. And then we show up on scene, we're like, wow, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And then we kind of process it different. And they've had to unfortunately be present for all of it.
For all of it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Now, and I know we've been focusing on a lot on law enforcement on this one, but does military face similar challenges? Because I mean, they've got medical staff, they've got police officers in the military, so they've got a lot of the same things in the military. So do you think they face similar challenges when it comes to that? Are they slightly different? Like, what's your opinion on that?
So the military, it's interesting because it's different. So the military, their trauma happens like a massive amount in a short amount of time. Massive amount of trauma in a short amount of time. Whereas public safety, it's trauma after trauma over many, many years, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that with the military, the biggest challenge is coming home and getting out because your fellowship is gone. Your tempo is gone. Your camaraderie is, people go home to their homes all over the country. And so it's really hard because the trauma happens so fast. It's usually a massive amount of trauma, and then your family's gone. It's like you're ripped away, and you're somehow expected to transition back to normal society and, go home and be a husband and be a father, or be a mother, or be a wife. And it doesn't work that way. So I think that the biggest challenge for our military is just isolation. And, and of course, people who serve, they come home, they want to isolate. They want to, they all talk about, I'm going to buy a ranch in the middle of nowhere. And they do, right? And they do.
That's what
and then
I want to do.
And it's not what it's cut out to be. I mean, would be lovely to have a ranch in the middle of nowhere, but it's also good to have your community. Yeah. And so I think, reestablishing that community for our veterans is super important. Like, so motorcycle clubs, those kinds of things, that brings back that sense of camaraderie and family that's just kind of ripped apart when here's your DD 214, thank you for your service, and go. And then they end up all spread around the world, really. And so to me, that's a unique challenge that the military faces. When you're on patrol, you go out on patrol and you got your shift, you got your buddies, and off duty, you may see them and that kind of stuff. And then you're back on patrol and you've got this sort of constant thread of friendship going, where in the military, it's just like, now it's over, right?
Yeah, and when it's shut off for those guys because they come back and they rotate out. Now, I know the warrior wisdom I spoke with you about was fellowship, and how important that was, and it really can make the difference, life or death for somebody. It really does.
So it reminded me of a situation. So my nephew, he's in the military. He just recently got out, and his best friend in the military. One of the things we started doing was, I'd play with my son Fortnite, online. We'd all have our headsets on and stuff and being able to hang out. And then when it was time for my son to go to sleep, then the three of us would just get to kind of play and be a little more explicit.
Yeah.
But that was a great thing for him because they went through basic together. They were together for a while, and then he ended up stationed in Hawaii. My nephew was in Texas. And I think that was a big thing for them to be able to just still, there's a way to keep that camaraderie, even though there's that distance.
Yeah.
Now.
And you're right. I think the connectivity of our society has helped with that a lot. Cause I still talk to guys that have retired from our agency, and we get online and play video games once in a while. And it's like, hey, everybody will text each other. Hey, we're getting on tonight, dude. And it was like, everybody gets on, and you kind of decompress a little bit because you're like, this is my buddy I worked with for 9 years. And, we saw some of this crazy stuff together, and we were able to to just still connect every once in a while. And it's that connection.
Well, and the funny thing with that situation was, so he named himself basically my adopted nephew, my nephew's friend. He named himself my adopted nephew. He invited me to his wedding. Sadly, I wasn't able to go, but so now he's my nephew. He's my little white nephew because he's actually not white. He's Hispanic, but
well, so are you, according to our podcast.
Yeah, right.
We had somebody respond to one of our podcasts. We were talking about a megalodon for no particular reason, and they said it's funny, the two white guys on the podcast, know more about the Navy submarines than they do about the megalodon. We're like. So he responded back, I'm Hispanic. And it was like silence from that person online. It was like, oh, no response then. Oh, that's funny.
But I think that was a great thing for him though, because it, you know, and I treat him kind of like I do my nephew, so it brought in a little more family into him, especially when he was so far away.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and those connections, like surviving this life in general, is all about connections and the connections you make, the people you meet, positive and negative. Because you can learn just as much from some negative connections as you can from positive connections.
Absolutely.
Like, ooh, I'm not going to do
Absolutely
that.
you can.
Like, I met you, and I'm like, I'm never buying an Indian. I'm going to buy a Harley, not an Indian. That's just a weird motorcycle. But anyway.
Don't lie, you know you want your next one to be an Indian.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll see. Probably. So moving on, you got the next one.
Oh yeah. Sorry, my phone turned
Sorry,
off.
we're starting to squirrel on you here a little bit. We
That's okay. No.
got back into
Sure.
our OCD.
Okay, so how many books have you written now?
So I've written 10, and they're all on Amazon. So I wrote the first one. I thought I was one and done, and then I wrote 9 more because apparently I wasn't one and done.
Yeah.
Two are for the children of first responders, and so, but yeah, and I just touch on a variety of topics. One's on resilience. One is for dispatchers. One is about stigma and culture. My most recent one is called Warrior Healer, which Dave Grossman dubbed me the Warrior Healer. And so
That's awesome.
I wrote, so my 10th book is the most challenging patients I've had in my career. And they all are very, very raw and basically told their stories. And then I talked about what it was like to be their therapist. And so that's my most recent one. And then we turned that into a documentary called Warriors and Healers, where we really highlight their stories and then the work my team and I do at the practice. So it's been fun.
Awesome. That's very
yeah.
awesome. So how long is that process for you to write a book? Like what's kind of that?
Welcome to the crazy. So
We're finally getting there.
Yeah.
So the only time I have to write books is during the holidays, because that's the only time things slow down for me. And so like the week of Thanksgiving, I will bang out as much as I can. And once I start, I'm obsessed. Like I can't stop thinking about it. And I'll write like 8 hours a day. And then around Christmas time, it slows down again, and I bang out the rest. And then I send it to the editor, and she tells me I'm a great writer, but there's lots of red, and so I'm not. But she fixes it, yeah. And so, so that's how I do it. I'm not the kind of person that can write 20 minutes each night. I once I start, I'm obsessed, and until I finish, like that's actually how I do it.
Super laser focused.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how you said the editor's like, "Oh, you write great, but pages 1 through 35 need these corrections." It's like, oh crap.
Totally.
What I do is, like, even when I write an email at work, like I'll read it 3 times and send it out, and then as soon as I send it out, I'm like, "Oh, I spelled that wrong."
Yeah. Do you reread it that third time?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. No matter what I do, it doesn't
All the
help.
time.
All the time. Yeah.
Your text messages.
Yeah. Oh god, my text messages are terrible. That or I use voice to text, and I swear to God, Siri thinks I have marbles in my mouth constantly because it does make my voice to text make no sense at all.
So
on that note,
there's a third one on this.
well, does writing the books?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, does writing the books help you at all?
Yes, in that I hear from people around the world saying that the book saved their life, or it made a huge difference, or like those. That is why I write books, because if it helps, it's like your podcast. If it helps one person, it helps me, right? So, so basically, getting the feedback and people like saying things like "Your book saved my life." Wow, you can't beat it. So to me, I hate the act of writing it, but I love putting it out, and I love the excitement, and I love the just the passion that it generates. I've recently learned that there's a couple of universities that use my books and videos in their curriculum. Had no idea until somebody followed my company Facebook page and was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "What?" Like, and honestly, I when I wrote my first one, I'm like, "Well, if one person buys it, that's amazing." And it's amazing to get like the network and the connection to now colleges and academies, police academies, fire academies. Like to me, it's like, wow, I'm still like, I still do like, are you sure? Cause I'm not worthy.
Well, I can tell you, you are, because you have assisted so many of us that there's no doubt in my mind that your work has saved. I would go in the thousands of lives that I mean, you have impacted so many people that it's unbelievable, and I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Like that's just awesome. Like,
Yeah.
Like I said, I found out you were going to be in Orlando, and I was like, oh, I geeked out. Oh, it's Tania. And I geeked out, and I got to talk to you there, and we got to do some cool stuff and see each other, and wave a drink at each other across the room from our tables across the room. But like it was good to see you, good to talk to you, and that's just really awesome. So like that, you just know you're making impacts and changes in people's lives, and that's just so amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's nothing better than knowing that you're able to make an impact, and
Right.
or at least trying to once that comes to fruition.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to start getting a little bit more like personal, I guess.
Oh boy, here we go.
Here we go.
So, what's your favorite band or style of music?
So I'm a child of the 80s, and I grew up with heavy metal and hard rock. So my favorite, do I have to pick one? Because I've got three.
You know,
Okay, we can go with three. Go for the three. The top three. The top three are okay.
So my top three are Five Finger Death Punch, Disturbed, and Breaking Benjamin.
So here's going to be my question for you. You ready?
Yes.
Five Finger Death Punch is going to be at Arizona Bike Week this year in April of 2025. And our club has 3 RVs. And we would love for you to come out and watch the concert with our motorcycle club.
Yes.
And party with us afterwards, and we'll make sure you have either a place to stay or a safe ride back to your hotel.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
I would love to.
That's awesome. So that's Scottsdale, Arizona. So the for the whole week, it's Wednesday's Jackal.
Yeah.
Thursday is Stone Temple Pilots.
Yep.
Friday is...
These are just headliners.
These are just the headliners. Friday is
Mudvayne. Yeah.
And Saturday is Five Finger Death Punch.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So I will send you all the details. I will send you all the details, and you are more than welcome to hang out with the club, have a few drinks. We have a friend of ours who is with Ed Morse Chevrolet. So we buy the whole row of RV spots. So basically, the one whole row is us all having a good time, and riding motorcycles everywhere, and going to the concerts and having just a great time. So we would love to send you an invite to come hang out with us and go to the concert and have a good time.
Thank you so much. I would be absolutely delighted. Thank you.
And then you'll get to see all of our significant others, et cetera, that that you haven't necessarily been able to meet yet. So.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So perfect. So I knew she was going to say Five Finger Death Punch. I knew it. I knew it.
It's a great band.
Yes, it
Love
is.
them.
They're awesome. And I love their focus on veterans. I love it. Like it just and first responders both. I mean, they do such a good job. Amazing guys. Really amazing guys.
I love them. Love them.
They're awesome.
Boom.
I've seen them a few times. So
boom.
Oh, you just made my day.
All right.
I'll start packing.
Yeah, there you go. So I'll make sure I get you all the information for that.
Thank you.
Here in the next couple of days. So.
Okay.
But
that'd be great.
What's next? What do you got?
That was it.
That was our final one. That was my little last thing.
So that's what we had prepared.
That was our prepared stuff.
That was our prepared stuff. So now we're just going to kind of go off on our normal randomness.
Yeah.
So
go first.
what kind of hobbies do you have? So I know it's real stressful having to do what you do.
And working out, obviously.
Obviously working out, but do you have any hobbies outside of that, like golfing, sports, something that kind of just is your relief?
Yeah. So besides exercise, going to concerts.
Yes.
There's that. Yeah. And actually, so when we finished up our response to the Uvalde school massacre, which was like for our practice, like a 5-month kind of a thing. At that point, I was kind of looking around, and I decided that I needed a freaking hobby. And so I signed up for voice lessons, and I started learning how to sing. And I will tell you, and I'm not going to sing, but I will tell you.
Damn, there goes my next question.
Oh, I was just going to say.
There goes my next question.
No. So I love it. Like I absolutely love it. I went from like 30-minute lessons to hour lessons. And I will tell you that when I get in there and I'm in a voice lesson, like the rest of the world shuts off. All you can focus on. I think if anybody who plays an instrument can relate to this.
Absolutely.
Because when you get distracted, like you miss a note or you get the wrong chord.
Yep.
And it's the same with singing. Like when you're distracted, it's like, well, what just happened there? Right. Because you sang it really well. And then, so it's really awesome for me.
So I play drums. So I understand exactly what you're talking about, because if you don't focus on drums, like there's so many things going on at the same time that if you don't focus, like all of a sudden you're hitting in the air, missing a cymbal, you're missing the snare, like something doesn't sound right.
Tempo.
Oh, lose tempo. Like that's the worst. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Especially for the drums. That's
losing
that's
the tempo
your
is
tempo.
the worst. Yeah. And it can happen so easily. Like you'll be playing and you'll be like, oh, I wonder about, oh, whoops. And it's gone. Yeah. So I think that laser focus sometimes helps.
It's mindfulness.
It's great. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's total mindfulness.
So do you do stuff like yoga or anything like that kind of gets you back in? Because that's what I've heard from a lot of people is just yoga's that, or doing stuff like that, or meditation, kind of in that same realm.
So this is Tania Glenn attempting yoga or meditation. Let's see. Today at 3, I have this patient, and then on the way home, I need to stop by the grocery store, and I need to get this. That's what my brain does during.
That's what my brain does when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yeah. That's yoga brain for Tania. So no, I've tried it. I can't do it. I will say that I feel like I reached that sort of in voice lessons. Mm-hmm. I'm able to get that, to that level. Yeah. But not like mindfulness or yoga. When it's quiet, like I am like,
your brain just starts
dinner tonight?
Racing. Yeah. That's how mine is. So if you don't mind, we're going to take another break.
The Idiots want to thank Sketchy Alias, one of our founding sponsors, for everything he has done for us. Sketchy works in vector-based design and has been working in the design field for 15 years.
His designs have been used on coins, apparel, websites, and logos. Sketchy is also a veteran who serves this great nation. Thank you for your friendship, work ethic, and service. Alrighty, guys. We're back from our next sponsor spot.
Yep.
Our usual sponsors. But this is going to be our time. We're going to get to know Tania Glenn a little bit better.
Yes.
Personal side, not
all
just
the
professional.
All the deep, dark secrets she has.
All the skeletons in the closet. Do you have any questions you'd like to?
First thing I'm going to ask, and it's, particular to us, is would you rather ride a Harley or an Indian motorcycle?
Of course you would go there.
So,
I have way too much stress and fatigue to get on a motorcycle other than on the back, but I say a Harley.
Oh, yes! I knew I loved you! Amazing. Sorry, thank you.
Mine's still quicker.
But it's not faster.
Let me take off my speed limiter.
Let me take off mine.
Okay, you might.
Yeah. It's
okay. No, actually, no, you wouldn't. Yeah. Remember, we were talking about gearing last time.
Anyway.
So,
we have a back and forth about motorcycles all the time. I put a bigger motor in mine because his was quicker than mine, and then now from a dead stop, it's
we still need to figure that one out because we're
pretty even both times now. So, but anyway, so we give each other crap about motorcycles all the time. That's part of our bikes, mics, and idiots.
So,
but I love this guy. I do have to say, I love this dude. So
love this guy too. If not, we wouldn't be doing this.
Well, exactly.
So do you guys? So I know it's very different for women, the types of relationships they have with their friends, because obviously our relationship, we give each other a lot of crap. Is that kind of typical for? Well, I know there's lots of different types, but do you do that with anybody? Do you have that kind of relationship with anybody where you'll give them kind of a hard time on a regular basis, but it's all out of love?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My inner circle, my very, very close, tight inner circle is full of amazing people, and we give each other crap all the time. Like it's kind of a constant. I think that my inner circle and I, we strive to laugh every day. Mm-hmm. Because there's so much pain and trauma in the world. So we laugh every day, and we make it a goal to laugh every day. We have nicknames.
Oh boy. Uh-oh. We're not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that.
I'm kind of curious now.
Because I
though.
might
I'm kinda
know
curious.
a couple of them. That's the problem, is I might know a couple of them, so I don't know if I'd be. I don't know if that's a good idea for me to know those. I'm not. It's like, was it the Meet the
circle of trust?
Fockers? I don't know if I'm in that
You're not
circle
in the
of
circle of
trust yet.
trust?
I'm on the outside ring of the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny, though.
It's quite entertaining. Yes, so absolutely, you have to have that. You do.
So do you think that's kind of a construct of you dealing with first responders?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I don't know, like my spouse, I don't think she has.
No, there's.
I don't think she has that relationship. Like she's got maybe one or two people that I know she talks really deep, and I don't ever want to know what they're talking about type of stuff. But like, I don't know if it's the same as first responders. And like, you guys are first responders too. You are at first on the scene helping these guys through trauma. So I kind of wonder, is that maybe kind of like a side effect of dealing with our crap?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So my team
Well, that's
and
the
I.
easiest way to say it. He's laughing at me, but it's the easiest way for me to put that out there.
Yeah, our culture at the practice really kind of mimics like the culture of public safety. It's just the way we talk to each other, the way we hang out together. We have spontaneous dance parties at the practice. It's just this random thing we do. I've got 3 veterans on my team. I have a law enforcement spouse on my team, and so it's just how we roll, right? And it's when we interview therapists, not many people can work at this practice. It takes a very special person, and we ask them things like, what is the worst thing you've ever done? What is your favorite cuss word? And there's really just one, but I won't say it.
The F dash word.
Yeah. Starts with an F, ends with a K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a versatile word, though.
Yes, it is very versatile.
Yes.
So we ask those types of questions, and honestly, I only now at this point, based on my experience of some therapists just not working out, I hire people who I would want to sit across from if I was having a hard time, and like is there that appeal? Like, are they warm? Are they caring? That kind of thing. But I also only hire at this point people who've been kicked in the teeth by life, because if you haven't been kicked in the teeth by life, you can't understand a first responder or a veteran.
Exactly.
And so, so like a lot of younger people who've kind of had, the helicopter parents or the lawnmower parents who've never failed and who've never faced adversity, like you couldn't spend a day in our counseling rooms because, wow, like holy crap, do they bring it, right? So, yeah.
So going on that, so is it kind of a thing of, because they've never experienced these terrible things in life, the stuff that, kicks you in the teeth, they have this skewed view of like this perfect world and things should fit into these little boxes, or is there more to it?
Or they just can't relate, I think.
Well, relation is really important that somebody can understand what you've, not necessarily know exactly what you've been through, but understand the trials that you've dealt with.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. People, if you don't understand pain and you don't understand strife and chaos, then how do you ever relate to a first responder or a veteran?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to get with you and figure out in the next 3 years what classes I got to get, because I'm retiring in 3 years. So maybe I could join. We'll talk offline about that, because I would love to continue to be involved with veterans and first responders once I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm going to call it a journey. It's been more of a kick in the teeth at times.
You can't leave the adventure.
Oh, I can never leave it. Even if it's just something I volunteer with, I'd rather do that than be not involved. Because I'm not the kind of person that can't be involved. I need to insert myself everywhere somehow.
Absolutely.
But so that was more of a statement than a question. That was kind of weird, but
yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Out there in the ethos somewhere.
So what's your favorite thing to do for fun, quote unquote fun? So like watching
out
movies.
is not fun.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I was that person for a while, so I get it. But like, I still golfed. I still watched movies. Still did those kind of things.
We know concerts are big, so.
Yeah. I think, because I travel almost every week, not all week every week, but I travel a lot. So to me, like it's so great just to be home. Like to me, being home and being and hanging out with my family, my dog, and just the ability to pull the plug and decompress and not have to go anywhere. To me, that is such a relief because I'm always on flights and always in hotels and always in strange cities and where I don't know anybody. And so the ability to unplug is amazing. And then, of course, like I said before, exercise and concerts are, my go-tos. But yeah, I absolutely love to be home because I have so little time at home.
Yeah, see, so like that's like the difference. So like my spouse works from home. Her office is in the house, and I work out there.
Yeah.
And so like on the weekends, I come home and I'm like, oh, it's so nice to see her. And she's like, let's go. I was like, oh.
But I want to be home
but
for
I
a little
just
bit.
want to sit here. I want to drink my coffee for an hour and a half watching Fox News.
Or watching the most random thing.
Yeah. And she's like, no, it's time to go. Let's go. So I'm like, well, what are we doing? Well, let's go for a motorcycle ride. Then it's like, okay, motorcycle ride. Let's go.
Then your ears perk up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of in that same realm then, what's your favorite, actually we're in the holiday season right now.
Yes.
So what's your favorite holiday movie?
Ooh.
My favorite holiday movie.
She's going to say A Christmas Story.
No.
Die Hard.
What's my favorite?
Absolutely a Christmas movie.
I don't think I have one.
No?
I think I hate Christmas carols like massively. Like starting now, I go into stores with earbuds because I can't do it, especially the Mariah Carey one.
So Mariah Carey's thawing out right now is not good.
Yeah.
She's all thawing out. The music started.
I have two. Yeah. I have two favorite movies, but neither of them are holiday movies, so it's hard for me to pinpoint.
Well, they could be. What are your two favorite movies then?
So, ironically, it's the movies that pulled the most emotion out of me, like that I had the strongest emotional reaction to, was Only the Brave, about the 19 hotshots that were killed on Granite Mountain.
Amazing. And that's actually not too far from Scottsdale, where we're going to be.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. That one, watching it, I mean, I worked for many years in Arizona, and I worked with firefighters who were up there when that happened. And so I was like, okay, I know the outcome. I know how this goes. Yep. And then when they died in the movie, the lady sitting in the row in front of me goes, oh my God, they died? Because she didn't know.
Yeah.
And then she starts crying. And then another lady down that her row starts crying. And for me, when people cry, it's like, for some people, it's like when people vomit, they want to vomit.
Yeah.
When people start crying, like I start crying. I cried for 2 hours after that movie.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't stop crying. Right.
I have to say that was such a well done movie, though. Like they did a phenomenal job on that movie, capturing the survivor's reaction and him wanting to go be there with the families, but them not wanting, like them wanting him to, glad that he was okay, but upset that he was alive, like that wasn't their person. And that just, there's so many things that just, it is such a,
so raw.
Oh gosh. I mean, it's a I'm going to go with a cauldron of emotions.
A cauldron.
A cauldron. We just got done with Halloween. Halloween's my favorite holiday. So cauldron sounds good. So movie number 2, what do you got?
13 hours.
Oh,
13 hours.
Movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I hadn't met Tig yet because I wasn't involved with Warrior Shield Foundation, but I knew what happened, of course, but I was so angry. The person I went with, I was on a date, and he's like, "You ready to go?" Because everybody's like leaving, and I'm like, "No, I just need to sit here."
Yep.
And I had to wait until the theater emptied out, and I was just I was shaking and I was crying and I yelled for the entire drive home. Yep. I was so freaking mad, but because those two movies sparked such emotion in me, they're to me the most memorable, and they're my favorites in a weird kind of way. Normally I don't really respond much to movies, but those two, man, I was
and the crazy thing about 13 hours is that, what we were told, it was just about a movie.
Right.
And the lies that were perpetrated to us are what makes it, to me, 10 times worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I got to meet Tig this last year. What an amazing human being! Like, just what a nice guy. Such a great guy, and to have to live through that and live through the lack of action by our country in that situation. Now, I'm going to just leave it there with that. I'm not going to get too much deeper into it because I will get myself into trouble and start swearing more and send the counter off. And,
we don't need that.
Another one that did it to me was American Sniper.
Oh yeah.
And what really got me was during the credits when they showed the processions and everything, and it was like,
that was a good one.
Wow. And it's like, you know, he went out there to help people and it cost him his life. And as weird as it is to say, I think that would be the way he would have wanted to go, was trying to help somebody, trying to help a feathered brother in arms. And that's what's so amazing about it. So I get those movies.
One thing I want to mention about Chris Kyle and what happened. So that wasn't PTSD that caused the individual to do that. He was having delusions and hallucinations. And I, you know, man, when that came out, then every veteran with PTSD was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to mention anything because you know, I would never do that. And, you know, and people have asked me, like, if I've ever been afraid to sit with a patient who has PTSD. Never. Yeah. Because PTSD is a whole different thing. And so I always like to mention that because a lot of people were horrified because it was made about PTSD and they made it to be PTSD in the media, but it was not that.
Well, no. And I would think that I would think Chris was the example of PTSD and being able to turn it around and turn into a positive light. And say, hey, I've gotten through this. Let me help you. And the other guy was just mentally unstable.
Right.
And that had nothing to do with PTSD. Yeah, it was a psychosis. I mean, I will not try
psychologist.
I'm not a psychologist or whatever. but yeah. So I mean, I thought that story was amazing, and the fact that Chris Kyle was right up until his death was willing to give so much of himself for his country and his people. That was the part that hit me. That was such so that one really hit me hard. That was crazy.
So you know what? Just since we're already talking about it, what's your favorite holiday movie?
Ooh,
we're gonna throw these out there.
So my favorite holiday movie is still gonna be Christmas Story. I can't help it. I've watched it. So I have a leg lamp I put up at my house. Of course. I have one that goes in the front window next to the tree. It goes in the front window next to the tree, and every once in a while the spouse will close the blinds, and I walk right up behind her and open them back up, and she's like, "Really?" I'm like, she goes, "People can see in the house." I said, "Yep, and they're going to see a leg lamp." So I can't help it. That's always going to be my favorite. But my favorite holiday is still Halloween.
Yeah.
Like I set up, like this year I did a car crashing into the side of the tree, and I had a smoke machine underneath it, so smoke was coming out. And my son hid in the back seat of it, so when people would come out, he'd reach out and grab them. So like,
oh my God.
It's fun. So people will come to our house, like every year people go by their house and they'll be like, this is a scary one, watch out, something's going to happen. And we do something different every year. So they're like, we always freak them out. So one year I slid out from underneath the garage on a creeper and would grab their legs. So like every year it's something different. And I had one, and the funniest one I've ever had is I slammed against the garage door, screamed, and grabbed somebody's leg, and they jumped away, and I heard a blood-curdling scream. And I'm like, "Oh, ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." She goes, I hear her laugh. She goes, "That was my husband." And he had jumped from my driveway like into the street and almost got hit by a car. So like I felt terrible. And she was laughing so hard, and I could hear him telling her, "Shut up. It wasn't even funny." Like he was unbelievably mad, but everybody else thought it was absolutely hilarious. So it was amazing.
That's the things that makes it good.
Oh, I love it. I was so Halloween. So your favorite movie? Halloween.
So my favorite holiday movie is going to be Elf.
Elf, yeah.
There's just something about it. Saw it when it came out. Just, I don't know. It's become almost a tradition. Watch it every year.
Yeah.
Just for that.
No, so that makes sense. That makes sense.
It's a good movie. It's just, it doesn't have, it's not too deep.
Yeah,
Christmas
it's
Story
just
has
a
a little
fun movie. You can
Yeah.
just sit there and watch it and not be like, oh, I have to think about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas
Yeah.
Story has a little bit more depth
Oh yeah,
to it.
Christmas Story. Even though I've watched it 100 times, every time I'll watch it, I'll be like, I didn't get that yet. Like every once in a while, you'll be like, oh, I totally got that. Now I got that part.
Well, okay.
Well,
so,
and then I see the things like my dad literally had that like robe, that bathrobe that he wears. Like, so every time I see it, I just laugh about the bathrobe. I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. But,
I was going to say, since we're going into that, like holiday movies, all that kind of thing, do you think that people, so you have the people that watch holiday movies or watch Hallmark movies or watch these certain things, do you think that plays a factor on kind of their personality or what maybe something they're going through?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's the comfort of tradition. Some people find no comfort in tradition, so they stop that, But I do think that the ability to just kind of disconnect from reality and just enjoy that is a kind of a nice reward for people, especially right around the holidays. But yeah, I do think, what you prefer is it does have a lot to do with your personality, right?
yeah.
And so, yeah, when you're talking about Elf, it's like it's the ability to disconnect and just kind of laugh and, find sort of that, that childhood fondness of the innocence of that movie, right? So it's, yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, they didn't ban it yet, so like, Baby It's Cold Outside, we had to ban that song because it was terrible.
That's my favorite one too.
It's such a great song.
It's my favorite holiday song.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised your favorite holiday movie isn't Nightmare Before Christmas, since it's.
Yeah, it kind of encompasses the both, but then just for me, it's a Christmas Story. I have a leg lamp. It's sitting over there, and it says Fragile on the boxes. I can't tell you. Like, it's in my garage, like, 20 feet away from us. Can you see it right there on the shelf? Fragile. Must be Italian. So that was always our tradition, and I love that about the tradition. So we do the same thing every year on Christmas, Christmas morning. So I typically work Christmas because my kids are older, so I come home in the morning, and by the time I get home, we have the cinnamon rolls are already cooked. My wife and I drink mimosas while we're opening gifts, and then now at this point, because I got to work the next night, I go to bed. So we get everything done. So we have the same tradition every year. It's cinnamon rolls and mimosas.
That sounds good. Perfect.
Yeah. It's not a bad way to go, honestly.
That's not.
Little orange juice for the vitamin C and the champagne for the vitamin going to go to sleep in a minute.
Yep. Absolutely.
Do you have any like holiday traditions, anything you kind of stick by that you try to do every year?
The cinnamon rolls. We do that too. Absolutely.
Cinnamon rolls are the best.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about cinnamon rolls on Christmas Day, but man, those are the best.
I'll tell you, I think it's Sprouts. Their cinnamon rolls are amazing.
Are they?
Really?
They're like an organic cinnamon roll. It comes in a blue container. Like we ended up getting them one year because we couldn't find our regular cinnamon rolls.
You don't even make
and
your
we
own.
got them, and we're like, they're going to be terrible because they're all organic. They're we made them. We were like, oh, these things are amazing. Like we've always used like the Pillsbury cinnamon ones, and the ones from Sprouts, amazing. So check out the Sprouts ones if you haven't done them yet.
Good to know.
They're really good.
Good to know.
They're really good.
Cinnamon rolls. We do pumpkin rolls.
Pumpkin rolls?
Yeah.
Isn't that Halloween?
No. For like
You take
Thanksgiving.
the pumpkin, you roll it down across your floor or whatever.
It's not jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, not jack-o'-lantern rolls. Okay.
No. Actually, I recently started, so it started being a Christmas thing for me too. I started deep frying a turkey, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago now. And I did it
Honestly, it's such a good way to do it.
for Thanksgiving. And so my sister started asking me to do the deep fried turkey for Christmas. So kind of that's become a thing. That's become a thing.
Well, finishing with a tradition, since we've had Tania on here, once again, I want to thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today, taking some time out of your busy schedule. We know you're super, super busy, but we'd like to open up the last couple of minutes before we call it a day for you to talk to everybody and give some insight and any type of good advice, whatever you want to do. The next few minutes until you're ready to go are all for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's been very fun, and it's an absolute honor. So I always like to close podcasts with just a message to first responders and veterans who may be struggling. I think so often what happens is people just lose hope and they just give up. And what we want people to understand is that there are solutions, there's answers, there's good treatment, there's all kinds of good things going on in the mental health world, and to just never ever give up. Around this time, we have a lot of first responder suicides, veteran suicides, and I think just helping people understand that when your mental health is bad, the brain just goes to bad, and the brain tricks you into believing that everybody would be better off without you, and that couldn't be further from the truth. There are people in your life who love you, and there are people in your life who will help you. And so whatever it is, just don't lose hope. Do some research, get some information, get armed with good knowledge, and then reach out to people in your community for the help that you need. But whatever you do, just please don't give up. That's my closing message always to people is please just don't give up.
All right, now real quick, do you want to share all of your social media so that guys can jump on there from our site? And what we'll do is we'll make sure if you once you email them to me, we'll put them on in the comments as well, so we can make some connections for you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So my website is taniaglenn.com, TANIA, and then Glenn with 2 N's. We've done 3 documentaries, and if you kind of want to hear straight from the horse's mouth what it's like to go through EMDR, just go to smashingthestigma.com. Those documentaries are loaded on smashingthestigma.com, but they're really loaded on YouTube, so you can watch anytime for free. Awesome. And then my Instagram is Tania Glenn Warrior Healer, and my Facebook is Dr. Tania Glenn and Associates. So I'm very Googleable. So.
Like I said, anytime I look it up, we find your name. So your name is very prevalent in here. But once again, I really want to thank you, and I'll pass you over to Ubi real quick too as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You've brought a lot of great stuff to light for people. Hopefully, we can reach a lot of people with this podcast.
Absolutely.
Especially this episode. This is a big one for us. It's a lot more serious than what we're used to.
Yeah. But super important. And we love the non-seriousness at times, but this is something we believe in heavily, and we try to talk to it on just about every podcast. There's resources, there's things available for you. So we again, we want to thank you so much. And as we always say at the end of our podcast, live good,
ride hard,
and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah.